You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, we talk about mental health in the COVID pandemic and post the George Floyd murder. We discuss the reasons why men typically don't share, and we unpack the tough decision to break up with someone. And we back, yeah, hey. And we back. This ain't no intro, this the entree. Hype it like the Savage Challenge, put it on play. Y'all not ready. But we back. I'm so excited to be back. Season 2 is finally here. First episode of the season. I want to first start off by thanking everyone that has supported the journey, that tuned in and listened to everything for season 1, gave me great feedback, was a big fan of the bonus season where you learn more about me, and has been really, really fanatically excited about season 2. And we're here. So let's get it started. Today, I have a good friend of mine. His name is Mick. Say what's up, Mick.
What's going on, Chidozie?
I'm happy to have Mick here today. I think he has a super interesting story and great perspective that we could all learn from. Before we start, like every episode, I want to toast. And given the current affairs, I want to just toast this to life, to being able to breathe, and to be having the love and people around us to make it worth living.
All right.
Cheers, man. So this is the Uncle Nearest, right, man?
Yes, indeed, man. It's only right.
That was fitting given like the times we're in to support Uncle Nearest. If you don't know the Uncle Nearest story, make sure you check it out. It's an interesting one, especially as it relates to whiskey and the stories that were told versus the stories that have happened. And so let's just get started and help the people understand a little bit more about you. And we're going to go through the same kind of contextual questions that we go through so people know, just have some context to who you are. So how long have you known your wife?
I actually known my wife for 11 years. We met in July of 2009.
How long were you guys dating before you proposed?
So that's a little bit complicated, but I will break it down for you. So we dated for about a year, and then we broke up. And then got together a little bit later, about a couple years later, actually, and then dated for another year and a half before we got married.
And we'll go deep into understanding those dynamics. And so you guys are married now. How long have you guys been married?
It'll be 5 years soon.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Good. Because one of the things I want to do this time around is to have people that have a little bit more, a few more notches under their belt as it comes to marriage. Last season 1, we talked to a lot of newlyweds.
Sure.
And so I think there's probably some perspective you've had coming into marriage that have been challenged a bit.
Yeah.
There's probably some perspective you had in your first couple of years of marriage that have been challenged a bit, and some things that you've learned now that, the 2 years of marriage Mick or the not married Mick would have been like, nah, bro, this is how we do it. And so, just to understand what you do for a living, you can tell us what that is.
Yeah. So I work in consumer products good marketing.
Okay.
Worked with a few different popular brands that you probably have heard of as a brand manager.
Gotcha. So you're a brand manager on the CPG side.
Yep.
What about your wife?
She's an attorney. She had worked at a firm for a few years and now is an in-house attorney.
Gotcha. So she did like the billable hours to like corporate.
Exactly.
Essentially. Nice. And so as context, when we talk about your background, can you share just, from a family construct, how many, are your parents still together? Yep. How many siblings do you have?
Yeah, so my mother and father have been married for going on 38 years, and I am the oldest of 3. I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
Gotcha. And what about your wife?
So my wife, her parents, they split up when she was about 5.
Okay.
Her mother has since remarried, so she has a stepdad, but that was after she had already kind of left the house when her mother got remarried. Her mother's only child. She does have some older half siblings on her father's side, but essentially grew up only.
So
child.
This is good because some of the feedback I've gotten is that all of the women come from both parents in the household, and so how does that impact relationship or how people see things? So I want to dive deep on at least some of the things that you may have noticed how that impacts her, or at least impacts how she sees the world, right, or receives love. So we'll be sure to get to that.
Sure.
And then the other context too that I want to understand is like children-wise, what does that look like for you all?
Yeah, so we have a 2-year-old daughter.
A beautiful 2-year-old daughter.
Thank you, man. And we're actually expecting our second child. Don't know what we're having yet, but
This is breaking news because I just found out about it too. So congratulations on that.
Appreciate it.
And so I'm excited to be able to bring you back for part 2, and hopefully,
For sure.
we have some more learnings about what's going on there that we can share.
Definitely.
The last part that I wanted to share that wasn't on the stuff that we discussed was someone asked me around the topic of, I know there was like 2 parts of y'all's relationship before you guys got married, but if you think about the first part, how long were you guys kind of talking, getting to know each other before you were like, we're official?
Yeah, so it was about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah. So we met.
Y'all hear that? 6 months, because everybody's been on this 2 month. You got to know 2 month kick. So 6 months is doable.
Yeah. So it was an interesting story. I won't go into all the details, but basically, she was visiting Houston with a friend. She was down in law school in a different city, and I was out with one of my boys. I was consulting at the time, so I was only kind of in Houston on the weekends, and ran into her at one of the popular bars for happy hour down there. And we kind of spent some more time. We went to a couple other spots, Raw Sushi, if you guys know Houston well, and spent some time at that happy hour. Went to another couple spots, and then got a phone number. And then after a couple weeks, kind of went on our first date, and it was kind of a slow build where we weren't in the same city, so we were coordinating, trying to spend time and figure out
trying to see what could be while living y'all's life.
Yeah,
cool. And so I want to get into it, but given the nature of the times that we live in, I think it's only right that I take a moment to just see how you doing, man. Like, I think we ask that question, and typically it's superficial, but really, how are you doing with everything going on? And the black man's psyche with this pandemic, all the racial challenges, and I would say new wokeness that's going on in the world. Like, how are you feeling?
I think there's just a ton of conflicting emotions going on right now. I mean, I think there's fear, obviously. There is trying to find moments of joy, being at home with my daughter, where she would normally be in daycare, and I have the opportunity to spend time with her. So in this pandemic, there is some joy there. I also think there's just confusion, like why now? Why is white America seeming to now wake up and embrace being anti-racist when in the past they have not? So there's some confusion there. I think there's a little bit of survivor's remorse, being kind of insulated and not living in a lower income neighborhood where you may have more interactions with the police and more likely to be a George Floyd. So there's some feelings of that as well.
Why do you call it survivor's remorse? Cause I feel like someone on the other side would be like, I wouldn't have been. I would have had that kind of remorse,
So I think that there is, seeing other black men consistently being killed, you feel almost guilty that you're able to avoid that with some of the privilege of your class, being a professional black man. And there's a desire to want to do something to help. Yeah. Because you see what's happening there, and there's just kind of this sense of guilt. There was the show that was on, I think it was Showtime, that was produced by LeBron and his people. Yep. And they were talking about how LeBron has felt kind of the same thing. He made it out of the hood. He's doing it. Yeah, he's been able to become successful. And so I think on a micro level, I've been feeling some of that as well.
Do you feel like it's just a black thing? In the sense of, like, we feel like for whether, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming like you didn't come from, like, you weren't like, hey, I was going to school hungry and all that. So you're not a product of that. And so do you feel like that is just like a construct that we have because our history as people that, lift as we climb? Like, if I'm making it, I got to pull people too. And that's that's a responsibility that's ingrained in us. Cause I don't know that I get that from other cultures.
I agree with that. I think they're just because of the history there, talking to previous generations, and feeling a collective responsibility for our condition. It's been kind of at least instilled in me. And so, I think it's definitely cultural.
And so I want to get to your story with your wife and that journey, but some of the things that you said makes me think about, I'm single. Yeah. And so some of the emotions that you have, I have similar emotions. Mm-hmm. And I would say that we're probably still in the midst of processing what those things mean. How do we show up for those things? And what do we do about them in terms of action? I can only imagine the levels and layers that one has now as a husband. For sure. And the intersection of whatever that meant to you. Yeah. being a husband means in the context of this stuff, as well as being a father and raising a young black girl, what that means in the context. And so I would love to like spend some time just talking about that before we get to the story.
Sure.
How does that, like, as a person that's supposed to be a provider, a protector, potentially, how, depending on how you guys see it, head of the household, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. How does that intersect with like what's going on and how you feel?
Yeah. It feels like a lot of pressure, honestly. Like I'm constantly thinking, okay, what do I need to be doing right now to make sure that my family's protected, right? I think before getting married, before being a father, I was a little more risky in some of the things I would do in terms of like I was out protesting, 2014, 2013, like back when that wave of kind of the police killings were on the overall American conscience. Now I feel like I have to be a little more responsible.
You count your costs, and it's a trade-off.
And there's a pandemic right now, so I just being out there in the streets, I just can't do that like I used to be able to, and so there's a little bit of guilt there as well, right? Like I feel like I should be doing my part out there. So I'm writing checks and sending donations in, but like
it's funny you said that because I was talking to someone and I'm like, man, I'm not in a position where I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I'm not in a position where I'm like Ariana Grande that can go there.
Yeah.
And something happens, she gets arrested.
Yeah.
She's probably good within minutes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle. And so
exactly.
I don't have the luxury in the sense to go out there because I have a lot to lose.
Sure.
But I was like, I'll bail y'all out.
Yeah.
I'm writing,
right.
Like, I can afford to write some checks
exactly.
and do that, but I can't show up necessarily in all the ways that I would like to because we count in the cost as trade-offs to it, and it's not only impacting us.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I think to go back to your question, I think I'm just constantly doing calculus on how I can make sure my family is good, and whether that is, just having conversations with my wife and making sure as she moves around that she's thinking about her safety in maybe ways she wasn't thinking about previously, and then just keeping that top of mind for folks. So.
And you use the word pressure, I think a lot of black men, and I think a lot of men in general feel pressure to like show up and that are responsible, take care of what's theirs, right? And I think black men feel an additional level of responsibility. And I think there's a certain degree of, once you've, gotten certain education, you got a certain bit of privilege, you kind of understand like what's on the other side, how far away you are from those things as well. An additional layer of pressure that you feel. And so how does that manifest in the sense of like creating spaces for you to navigate that? Because like having all that pressure is not always healthy, right?
No, it's not.
And so how do you navigate, or whether it's your wife creating environments for you to get it out, or whether you're doing things on your own, because, we need those opportunities. I think us as black men don't often have avenues to release the pressure or find out, hey, it's not just on your shoulders. There's support out there.
I think one of the things that's been really helpful for me, I'm super tight with my line brothers. And during
what are you for the people?
I'm Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Had to.
So we during the quarantine, we decided that we were going to get on Zoom, Skype, whatever, once a week. So every Monday, a couple hours, we get on, we talk, we make sure everybody's good. We're all feeling the same pressure. A lot of us have kids. And so we're just giving ourselves that space to kind of go ahead and let that out and talk about it. Or if you don't even want to talk about it, we can just talk about funny stuff, whatever's going on, whatever show you're binging, just to escape if you need to. So
y'all have essentially created a safe space just to I would think, and I'm going to give you my perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, because we have a group me of guys that went to Ross.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Ross is a business school from the University of Michigan. And so it's multi-classes. So we have guys from like, I would say 5-10 plus years, and then some recent grads all the way through. So we're always chatting, but more recently during this pandemic and stuff like that, someone started doing like a weekly Zoom, and the numbers change every week, but I think it's been a really good opportunity for us to connect as men. Yeah. And I don't know that it does the work in like decoupling the pressure you feel and things like that. But I think it is, what it does create is a safe space, or a space in itself where you don't feel the pressure in that moment. Yeah. And for that hour or two, you're like, I'm just Joe Blow guy, and I don't have to think about these things that are part of my daily stress or pressure that I feel to show, the ways I need to show up on a regular. And I can come to these conversations, talk about fun stuff, or get some suggestions on what I should be doing. But I can take a break, and it's, lack of better words, it's an escape from what's going on. Do you feel the same way, or do you think it's different for you?
I think that's right. You hit the nail on the head right there. I think that's exactly what it is. I have people on my line who facing furloughs, people who, are going into dangerous situations because of their career. They have to go into prisons or hospitals, and where there's people who, are infected. And so there's a lot of stress and pressure on them. And so they need a place to just be able to not think about that stuff. And these are life-threatening situations. And so, yeah, it's been great for that.
No, I mean, it's interesting that in multiple places, men have, and I don't think our situations in terms of you finding space there, I've found spaces in other places. Multiple groups of men have found these outlets or escapes to kind of relieve themselves of the pressure.
Yeah.
Do you feel like part of that is a byproduct of they can't or not able to find that in their relationship, like the space not being created in their relationship? Or, and I don't want to make it seem like, it's the wife's fault, right?
Sure.
It might be.
Yeah.
No one's perfect. And I think that's one of the things that I promote, like women creating spaces for vulnerability and men to show up that way. Or do you think that part of it is on, like, the men don't feel like they can, right? Like, I have to be the protector, so I can't be weak.
Yeah.
I can't, if she's scared and she's concerned, I can't add my it's like a roach or like a rat in the house. Yeah. I'm scared of it too, but I gotta go kill it.
Yeah, man.
And so is it a function of that? Like, I have to be strong because I know she is scared or she is feeling pressure. Yeah. And so I don't have an opportunity to be weak. Not weak's not the best word, but vulnerable in that sense, because I need to show up for her. And so we go to these external outlets via friends or have you, or is a function of it's not really created there, so we just don't talk about it.
Nah, I think you're really tapping into the psychology right there. I think my wife does a great job, and I give her a lot of credit for allowing space to be vulnerable. I can open up to her about my frustrations, my feelings, my insecurities, whatever that may be. But you're what you mentioned about wanting to be strong for the family and not necessarily wanting to bring it to her, even if there's space for it, is definitely I think what's, at least I can, speaking for myself, has been the case, right? Particularly in this time right now where everything's so out of whack, from a society standpoint. So I've been not wanting to necessarily go to her because I know she's feeling a lot of the same emotions I'm feeling.
We all feel
so
it.
It's like I need us to be somebody has to be kind of the rock in right now. And so I'll go to my boys to kind of vent.
Do you think that's healthy?
Man,
I say this, like, I don't think there's a right or wrong, but
I don't know.
Do we think it's healthy to because, like, what I hear is that I shoot it straight. There's levels to, like, being a black man. Like, you got people that's out here struggling. You got people out here just doing making wrong decisions. You got people that's, we ain't where we want to be, but we living comfortable. All things speaking.
Exactly.
And you got people that made it. And so when you're in this, like, a place where you're comfortable to made it, some of the, I think in a lot of those cases, some of the stereotypes of, like, you don't know how to communicate, or you don't recognize the value of it, is not like as much of an issue. Like, I think you're a person that recognizes the value of communicating. You recognize that, like, hey, it's important to share. But you just said, like, I don't do it because of this, right? And so it's a different, I'm not getting the vulnerability because of, right? And so understanding that, do you think it's healthy, though, like, to maintain that mental construct?
I'm working on it. I think it's important that your partner know what's going on with you. So you can't be kind of, devoid of your emotional, vulnerabilities when you're really going through, some negative feelings. So I'm trying to find that balance. I'm trying to, like, make sure she knows what's going on with me. I'm not just giving her the superficial, I'm good, and really allowing myself to give her the full picture, while at the same time maintaining that strength that I feel like I need to as the head of the household, or whatever moniker you want to.
It's interesting. This wasn't part of the plan to talk about it, but as you talk, I have more questions because if I'm in the head of a woman, I would think that she would want to know, like, how does that work? Like, what does she do to elicit that? It may not be albeit the way she. It's coming out the way she wants it, but to start the process of eliciting that communication, like, what are some things that you think your wife has done well to help you? And it might not be one thing. It might have been
Yeah.
like over time that's built that. But what would you say has led to that?
We're getting into some stuff right now. All right, so I think my wife has done a lot of work for herself understand what American patriarchy looks like, and what a lot of different gender equality voices, and whether that's authors and or speakers or whatever. She's done a lot of work to try to understand the toxic masculinity phrase that has become popular. She's done a lot of work to understand that and break down how both men and women perpetuate that. And she's done a lot of work to, in our relationship, break down some of the stereotypical things that come out that may prevent men from being vulnerable with their partners.
Yeah,
right?
some examples.
I think the easiest one is men crying, right?
Yeah.
Like there's this idea that you can't show any sort of emotion. My dad was like that, right? Like I've never seen my father.
Dad don't even say it. My dad doesn't even say I love you. So
right,
yeah.
All right. And so I think she did a lot of work to try to. And I'm not a finished product. I'm not gonna say I'm you know what I mean.
Work in process.
So
right?
so I'm working toward being able to be more emotionally vulnerable.
But she say like, Mick, it's okay to cry.
I mean, not so that, but like,
have there been moments where, for whatever reason, because this is what I think. You correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
And I'm jumping. I think, and I try to tell people that with men, there are a lot of little things that occur that men take note of.
Absolutely.
And that, whether right or wrong, the reality is that becomes their rationale for what is okay and not okay to do.
Yep.
And so I was having a conversation, part of the mini series, and I gave the host my assumption, my thought on the question she asked me. And she was like, "No, that's not it. I want yours." Not jokingly, I was like, "Look at you. I gave you an answer that you asked me a question to, and it wasn't good enough."
Exactly.
And so you were pushing it instead of saying, "Okay, I hear what you're saying."
Yeah.
And I think if that was in the context of a relationship, let's say me being vulnerable, or me trying to take the lead on something that maybe I didn't do it well, it's been criticized, and now I'm not going to the next time around want to do it because I've seen an example of how it went. It wasn't what I wanted or didn't work out. I didn't get the love or the support that I wanted to get or reinforcement of it. So I'm not gonna do it again, right? I mean, and so like, is that more the situation?
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's more so what she hasn't done that I can point to, because I've been in situations where I'm having conversations, whether it's a platonic or a woman I was dating in the past who said things like, "Oh, that dude's soft. Oh, he's a punk." Oh, things like that that very much reinforce if a man is just showing his emotions that somehow he's less than a man, right? Yeah. And so by not doing those behaviors, you're inviting a man to allow his softer side to be shared, to be shared with you,
or leaning in during those moments versus having like what might be an adverse effect to it.
Yeah, and so I think there's a lot of men right now who just they steel themselves and they try to portray being hard all the time, and then their emotions come out as anger when they're really feeling sad or really feeling depressed or whatever it may be, and anger is really the only option they're allowed to display. And
I get it. I mean, I'm a byproduct of my parents, and I'm not a very I'm very strategic, and strategic sounds like inorganic. I'm just I think intentional is probably the better word. I'm very intentional about the emotions I project.
I agree.
And for multiple reasons. Sure. But I think on more of the emotional vulnerable sides of things, I'm less willing to project those things. Part of it is because some of the things you talked about. Yeah. Part of it is because I think it's important to think about why you feel that way before you project them out, because there's impacts. Yeah, for sure. That impacts things. Sure. And so I just always wonder, to what degree is it like the person getting out of their own head in terms of just like sharing, right? Yeah. And having like the bed being made for someone to share. Yeah, yeah. And what are the roles that we have or responsibilities that we have, especially in relationship, to being proactive about setting the table for that, whether it's creating the environment or as a guy being like, hey, you know that this is important, lead despite how you feel. Yeah.
No, I hear you. I think it's an interesting question. I don't know the right answer. I think ultimately men want respect, right? Yeah. And so they want whatever it is they're projecting emotionally to be respected. Yeah. And so if they're holding back, they're feeling like they're not going to get respect if they let all their emotions out. And so wherever women can show that they respect the full range of male emotion, I think it's going to lead to that.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We'll talk about it in a second when we do the round robin. There's a question around that. I have a question for you around that. But it's interesting because once in my lifetime, I went to like premarital counseling with someone that I was with. Sure. And it was church based. Yeah. And so one of the things that one of the couples that was helping instruct the group said was that, and I think they cited scripture. I don't have the scripture on me, but they basically talked about how women see love through love, and men often see love through respect. Yep. And the mere fact that those are different in terms of how we want to see love enables conflict, right? Yeah. Or not even conflict is strong. It enables miscommunication or misalignment because they're showing it to you one way, and you're like, no, but I need it this way. Yeah. And so I'm a firm. When you said it, I'm preaching to the choir here because I think respect is one of those things that. Like for me, I'm like non-negotiable. Yeah. Like I don't deal with the disrespect at all. Yeah. Because I think it's one of those things that you're cheating the relationship. Yeah. I've told some people this before. I'm like, you're cheating the relationship. When you disrespect me, you're cheating the relationship because you took the easy way out because later on you can go apologize. Sure. The damage has been done. Yeah. And especially if you're not going to go do this to your boss, you have self-control to do it. You're taking the relationship for granted because it's easy for me to do it too, but I choose not to despite how I feel. Yeah. And I think men really hold on to that. Yeah. Versus some of the other more loving and endearing things that that women do, and so I think it was interesting that you said that because I'm a full believer in that. Like for men, it's all about respect, and a lot of people will disrespect the people that they love. Yeah, in terms of how they treat them. Yeah, but like when you respect somebody, you're just gonna respect them. Yeah, and that like the level of treatment doesn't necessarily deter from whatever that minimum standard is. Yeah, but with love, it's like a full spectrum of what respectful actions are. Yes. And so I just think it's interesting that you've kind of echoed that sentiment that not only that I believe, but I keep harping on because I think it's important for both men and women to like understand that concept. Yeah. We talked about this enough. I don't know if there's any like kind of final words. I just think it's important to chat about this, and we could spend a whole hour talking about it. But I just wanted to understand like how you're feeling. I know you're good. Yeah. But how does some of that stuff show up in terms of relationship? Because I know a lot of men are navigating it. Yeah, man. And I also know it's important for us to find outlets and ways to not necessarily be walled up on the emotional side of it. And how men, especially that are married, I don't know, single guys. I mean, we single guys are trying to figure it out. We just living. Hopefully you have good friends around you. Yeah. But how does like your partner in a relationship help that or hurt that in some cases? To help you deal with that because we all need help.
No, I think there's little things you can do for each other that are helpful. I mentioned to you how I'm trying to like give her like a week off basically where I'm taking the kid. We're gonna go stay with my parents for a little while. Just give her some space I told her to take the week off work and she can just kind of chill. So finding ways in which you can help support each other. Do self-care. Was
that a function of you just being a great person, or was that like your response to conversations you've had and he's like, my wife's tired and she needs a break?
No, she didn't like ask for it or anything, but I could just see just how taxing it was for her to try to work as well as be a child care center along with me while trying to work. Yeah, so we're both trying to like, what time is your call? What time's my? Okay, I'll watch her this time. That kind of thing, and so. Dealing with that has just been tough, so I want to give her some time.
That's real, and I commend you on that. For sure. Fellas, we need to find ways to just love on our wives, show up for them, be there for them in the ways that they ask for and ways that they don't. And so I want to pivot on, since we were talking about your wife, to like, this is called I Think I Love My Wife. Yeah. And so let's talk about that. What do you love about your wife?
Oh, man, she is extremely empathetic, very compassionate. Just like a really kind person in general. And then I think we just have great chemistry. We joke a lot somewhere in our wedding vows about being puzzle pieces. We just really fit well. And how that kind of manifests itself is we're both really intellectually curious. And so kind of reading books and discussing different ideas and kind of just discovering things is a big part of our relationship. And then humor is huge for us, right? We have a very, it's not completely matched, but like pretty huge Venn diagram overlap of like the things we find funny. A lot of inside jokes. We have lists and lists of things that we'll just kind of say something and instantly know what the other one's talking about and kind of bust out laughing. So
And so this is a similar question, but different.
Yeah.
Because I think certain aspects that the men that I talk to, that they love about their wives, it's very much like there's trends around some of those things. Not all the time, but there's some certain big picture trends. And so I asked this question, understanding that there's a nuance to it. But what do you think makes her special to you?
Yeah, man. Well, I think what makes her special is she has range. She's just incredibly versatile. I can kind of go down different aspects of a person, and or traits or abilities, and she just excels at a lot of different things. First is like intellectually, she's a card-carrying member of Mensa. Like she's top,
they about to say NRA or something.
No, she's a top 1% IQ, right? So that's like we get the magazines at the house, like, you know what I mean? Like so she's incredibly smart. She has great style. She has a lot of creative vision when it comes to like decorating the house or like her wardrobe or whatever it may be. Just like incredible eye for things.
She's thinking with both sides of her brain.
Yeah, exactly. And then she cooks really, really well. My grandma came for Christmas one year, and she was making everything from scratch. And my grandma was just like watching her in the kitchen like a hawk, and came away like, ooh, Mick's wife can really throw down, And I was like, okay, grandma approves. So she like got a real chef over here, you know what I mean? So, there's just a few things. I can go on and on, but like she just has skills that make her truly like a jack of all trades, so she can just has so much range.
This is the first time I've asked this question.
Yeah.
It just came to me. You think you married up?
I do actually. Yeah.
I think most people's goal is to marry up.
Yeah, man.
So I wonder. I don't know why I've never asked it before.
Yeah.
Or why it came up now. But I was like, do you?
Yeah.
Feel like, I think that's a compliment. Like,
yeah.
You should married up. Like, yeah, I know you killing the game. I'm just trying to catch up.
Exactly.
And so, at what moment you talked about? You alluded to the fact that you guys were together, split, got back together.
Yeah.
What point were you like, I think I love this person? And as you tell me, if you could provide some context to like what phase, like first part, second part.
Yeah, so this was before the second part. So we had broken up, and now I'm.
You can give us a backstory if you want to start.
Okay, yeah. So I can tell you the first part of things. Yeah. So we started dating officially. And we're doing the long distance thing.
So this is 6 months after you guys met.
Yeah, 6 months after we met, we officially become boyfriend, girlfriend. I was like 25 at the time. And, we were doing long distance. I was consulting, as I mentioned before. She was still in law school. And so I was kind of on the weekends, whenever I could, flying back from my project site. And instead of going back home to Houston, I was going to Austin, where she was in law school. And so we spent time whenever, once or twice a month. And the company was paying for the flight. So that made it work out.
It helped.
And so everything was going great. And I think for me, I was applying to go to grad school. I went to business school. And we kind of got to a point where I needed to make a decision. Like, do I want to kind of continue to move forward in this relationship and see, like, definitely, like, this is going to be a long-term till the end type thing, or I think it would have required a lot more work to maintain a relationship with me all the way on the East Coast for business school while she was in law school. And so we had some conversations about it and kind of mutually agreed that, like, based on what I was kind of saying about not having the time and not the opportunity to put the same amount of work into the relationship.
What were you saying? What were you saying?
So I was basically saying,
I've been to school.
No. So what I saw happening was, I was like, look, I'm gonna go off to New York. I'm gonna go be in business school. I know that there's a certain amount of energy and effort that she deserves from a relationship, and I just didn't think I could provide.
I'm about to live my life.
Yeah, I was gonna be how business school is, right? It's full time.
You're gonna be focused on you.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to say it. I'm gonna be focused on myself right now.
Exactly.
In all the ways that looks like.
Exactly.
I'm gonna be focused on me.
Exactly.
And I think it's smart.
Yeah.
Or it is responsible. Probably is the best word, to understand how that may or may not impact her.
Exactly. And I'm sure it wasn't the greatest thing to hear, but I think my decision reflected a lot of respect that I had for her.
Yeah.
Because I knew I didn't want to be like a crappy boyfriend to her while I was being focused on me, right?
Exactly.
And I wasn't gonna have those free flight benefits anymore. There's a lot. There's a lot.
I really got to think about how my budget works.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a student. I'm gonna be kind of broke. It was just gonna be.
It's hard.
It's gonna be a different situation,
Yeah.
and I just didn't see it working the way. And we were doing so well. I didn't want to like ruin what we kind of had.
You didn't want to ruin, so you ended it.
Right? It sounds crazy to say that, but like no, that's
I hear you.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But someone's like, you don't want to ruin it, but you ended it.
Yeah.
What?
But we ended on we were cool. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like.
No, Mick, it was cool in the sense of, I'm making my inferences here. Like,
Yeah.
cordial. You didn't cheat on the woman, so she's not salty.
Yeah.
She's a smart person.
Yeah.
So I think she got the logic of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think she came into it like, you know what? He's going to school. I would love for us to be broken up. So
Agreed.
it wasn't ideal.
No.
It wasn't ideal.
It wasn't ideal. You're right. She would say.
I'm sure she wasn't like, yes, let's go. I mean, I'm sure there's some.
Absolutely.
Something like she read the write on the wall. She's like, I see what he's telling me. I would be a fool to be like, let's force it.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't think that's her mindset,
Yeah.
right? So she wasn't. It wasn't like she was ecstatic about it, but
Yeah.
like it wasn't like you did her dirty.
There you go.
And I'm trying to keep it as real as we can.
No,
keep it.
you're right. You're right.
And so she's in this situation, not happy about it, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yep.
Like, what happened? Like, did y'all just not communicate? Did y'all
Check
in Christmas? Hey,
There
how you
were
doing?
there were like
I see
random
you when I'm in town.
There were random texts every now and then. You know what I mean? Like she was supposed to come to New York at one point for work. She ended up getting a job at a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
A few months later. So this is probably almost like a year later, I guess.
Yeah. From when y'all official or when y'all met?
From when we broke up. So we broke
Okay,
up.
got you. After the breakup.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
How long were you guys together the first time?
A year.
Okay, a year.
Yeah.
So a year. You met 6 months.
Yep.
Started dating.
Yep.
Dated for a year. You going off to school. You guys break up.
Yep.
This is a year into the breakup now. So you're known each other for over 2 years.
Yep.
And she.
There were some random text messages in there like, hey, how you doing? Like kind of just in passing type text.
Keep the pot warm.
Exactly.
keep that pot warm. Hey, simmer.
But like she was out there doing her thing.
No,
too,
I get it.
she was,
I don't think you was misleading.
Yeah,
which I think is
she was out there doing her
the
thing.
biggest responsibility that we have as men is like, don't mislead.
Yeah.
So, but
she was dating.
Hey,
she was doing her
you
thing.
do what? Listen.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, no one's asking.
Yeah.
You said your vows. How did it get to here? Like, we're just happy you're here.
She was dating, doing her thing. I was dating, doing my thing. We were
Both living
on
your best
good
lives.
terms. We were on good terms.
Amicable.
Yeah, exactly. At one point, she had a trip that got canceled. She kind of hit me up like, "Oh, I'm going to be in New York." It's like, cool, let me know. We can go grab a drink or something. But
I get the sense that it was like we're not. This could turn itself around, but we're not checking for each other.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
That's a good setup.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, she was, like I said, doing her thing. I didn't have any serious people in the room. She didn't have any really serious people in the room. So one time, so basically getting to the point where you asked the question about when I knew that I loved her, I think it was probably a couple years post breakup. I'm fuzzy on the dates exactly. But I was out with my boys, had been drinking a little bit. We were having one of those conversations like,
man, I miss this woman.
yeah, right. That's kind of how it happened,
Yeah, I miss her.
So I'm like, we're going through like,
that range.
Talking through our dating lives, and one of my boys,
he's out here trash.
I mean, you know how it goes. You know how it goes.
Living in now.
One boy was talking about how he was gonna think about proposing to his girl, and I was like, man, I was thinking about her, and I told him, I was like, still thinking about her, and yeah, I feel like I need to talk to her, and she actually called me that night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Look at God.
Same night.
He was lit.
I was lit.
Came up with all the feelings. This is the most emotionally vulnerable this man has ever been with.
Right. So I was in the club, like literally she called me. I was in the club, I was like, hey, let me hit you right back. So I find a quiet corner in the club, and I'm like over there, like like Carl Thomas, like just over there on the phone, and just basically tell her like, yo, I miss you. I want to see you. Like, been thinking about you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward kind of a few months. This is now I've graduated business school. I now live in Chicago. And we kind of kept up a little bit more regular text messages after that conversation. And then finally I was like, look, I want to fly you out. Like,
she got flew in.
I want to fly you out. Like,
I got that business school money. I fly you in.
Like, come hang out. Like, and I rolled out the red carpet. I cooked for her. I don't think I've cooked for her since. But I called my mama. I was making recipes. Mom approved recipes. And did the whole deal. Gave her a great series of dinner and drinks and
Sure,
the whole thing. So that kind of led us back to getting back together. Probably like a month later, we were officially.
So when you flying her out,
yeah,
at that point, did you already know what you wanted?
Yes.
You just trying to get her back on it.
Yeah. I basically was like, man, like I know this is the girl for me. I've dated some other people, and I've refined kind of my list of what exactly I'm looking for in a wife.
Yep.
And she checked those boxes. So I was like, you know what, let's make this happen.
And so, do you think it was a function of like she was waiting on you to? Like she felt the same way, and she was not waiting, like hands, like I can't wait. But
man,
I hear often that women say, "We're waiting on the guy to give us something to like when they're like when they like someone to like move forward."
Yeah.
So was it a function of like, had you said it a year earlier, she would have been like, "All right, let's," I
don't know. I think the timing was right when it happened. I think previously, like one of her best friends had said something to her like, "Oh, when are you gonna like you should talk to Mick some more, like y'all should get back together," kind of thing. And she was like, "Nah, he overdoing.
He lived his best life."
Exactly. Like, nah, she didn't see it.
He was still in business school.
That may have been the case, but yeah, she kind of dismissed it, and so I don't think she was waiting around for me. I think
was that best friend? Was that best friend? Did she come because of indirect feeler from you, or is she just
no?
Okay.
She had not spoken to me at all. I didn't have any contact with her.
You didn't even know that was happening.
Didn't know that was happening at all. But yeah, I think I was just fortunate, honestly. Like I had another friend who was in kind of a similar situation. He broke up with a girl, went to Oxford. You know what I mean? So he bounced the whole country, and then he came back and was trying to get back with old girl, and she got married to somebody else. And you know what I mean? That could have been me. You know what I mean? So
do you feel like prior to that point, so prior to the, let's say, less than a year in the breakup, you didn't know if she was your person? You weren't sure?
I wasn't sure. No.
Got it. What changed? Was it because to me what I hear is that like you just realize like the grass ain't greener.
No, that's not. And
I'm not saying that it is, but like
that may be how it sounds. I think what it was, like I wasn't when we dated the first time, I was thinking like boyfriend girlfriend. I wasn't thinking husband wife. Like I just didn't have that mindset at the time. I was like, I was 25. I was like, this is cool. This is a good relationship. Like I'm happy. It works. Yeah. When I felt like it couldn't work anymore.
It's fit. That's interesting. I mean? Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, well, does it make sense to stay together? Like I was very much in just like a dating boyfriend girlfriend mindset. And so then fast forward some years, now I'm in my late 20s, and I'm thinking, okay, I do want to get married. What am I looking for in a wife? Oh wait, like
business school does that to you because I think you low-key put your life on pause for a couple years. Yeah. And then towards the end, the last like 6 months, like I'm about to go back into the real world. What do I want?
Yeah. And that was a big step for me, right? Because I knew I wanted to get that degree, and that meant like, okay, now I'm done with education. Now it's a different.
There's nothing else for you to go back to school for, really.
Exactly,
like you're done with.
I've done what I needed to do. Now I'm gonna go have a career.
You probably get the job.
And I wanna have a family. Like now I'm thinking that mindset versus
things I still need to accomplish. Relative to like the progression of life.
Exactly.
No, it makes sense. I think there's a lot of questions I have. So technically, the reason why I'm kind of going back and forth and I don't feel settled is because
go ahead.
Someone told me, I was talking about my situation or my last relationship.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got into it because there was things that I started to expect from this person and we weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And then there was a kind of dynamic where I didn't want to risk the potential of her finding out about certain people that we were talking to. Yeah. And I cared about her so much that it wasn't worth risking.
Sure.
And she was like, guys always need something. Like, it always takes guys something than them just, determining when they got it. And so it seemed for you that something was, I don't know if it's true or not, but if we're using that analogy, that something was you starting to really think about life.
Yeah.
Like what life from a like forever, more permanent standpoint looks like versus these. And I get it because I'm in consulting too.
Sure.
And trying to date, trying to get ready to go to the grad school. Yeah. And the demands of the job, everything gets fixed in bubbles time. And everybody's not used to that. Yeah. And so it's hard to date alone in that kind of lifestyle. Sure. And everything's like, especially when I'm going to go to school. It's like, this is temporary. This is temporary. This is temporary. And so when you get to a point where like I've done all the temporary things I can do in life, and I'm about to do forever, the mindset has shifted significantly. Sure. in terms of as you think about your future, what you want, and what's I would say on your list of things to accomplish.
Yep.
Like I'm sure like the way you grew up, marriage was something you knew was gonna happen.
Yep.
But like, I gotta get this. Like this is part of the process to get. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume this is the way I think about it. I don't think it was an inhibitor, but I think in your mind is some of it's part of the process to be prepared for marriage. Right?
Yeah.
These are things that I told myself I want to do to be ready. Do you think like you had to be like that, or is just the way you had it in your head set up?
Yeah, I don't think I planned it that way. I think I just had a short-term mindset, and then came out of business school with a more long-term, just like, okay, this is the jumping off point for kind of the rest of my life, and what does that look like from a partner standpoint?
She's more in the moment.
Yeah.
What would you have done? She met like the guy, like another guy. I wouldn't say the guy of her life because it's
what?
you.
I mean,
now, but if he was in midsummer and y'all checking in, it's like, oh, hey, Mickey can't call me after 9:30 because I have a new man.
I would have been sick.
Like I lost one.
I would have been sick. Honestly, I mean, I would have had that. I would have been back on that balcony with my boys. Like, yo, I talked to her. And,
we in pandemic and I'm still.
You know what I mean?
Whole different boat.
So yeah, I mean, because I don't necessarily feel like I met anyone else in my life that I felt checked nearly anywhere close to those boxes for me. So I would have been listening to your podcast, trying to figure out what.
But it's risky though, right?
It's mad risky.
Part of what I want to take some time to explore is the fact that these decisions aren't easy, right? And there's a level of maturation, there's a level of responsibility, that comes to make decisions that are not necessarily for your direct benefit, but are probably the best thing to do, whether it's a long-term play or just out of respect for the people that you're dealing with. And I think I was in a similar boat, not from like a I'm going to school standpoint, but again, my last relationship, all the things you talk about, the steps to take. Yeah. You love this person. You think she has like a lot of the right tools and toolkit to be there for you. Can you see yourself? Have you talked about like future planning, all that? Yeah. And then you having to make a decision that you don't know if it's right or wrong, but you feel like in the moment it's probably what's best. Yeah. And I ended it because I was like, hey, the way we're going, I don't think it's going to help us. And we need we need a break in there to really like reevaluate the things that we're dealing with, worth dealing with, like are having issues with, worth dealing with. What are we taking for granted? And like, my story's untold yet because who knows if we get back together or not. Sure. But it was important that doing that wasn't going to help. And I think you felt like going to school and stay with a person probably not going to end up positively. Yeah. And so I need to make that decision by itself was a smart decision, whether it works out or doesn't work out. Yeah. And in a similar boat, I felt like that was the right decision for me. Yeah. Whether it works out or not, or whether I lose out or risk, I'm taking a risk here. Yeah. But I don't think people realize like how hard of a decision that is to make because you're not certain. Yeah. Your story, it works out that like you guys got back together happily ever after. It doesn't always work out that way. For sure. But walk me through, I guess, some of just like the thought process and like starting that conversation, because to me when I ended it, I was like, how did you bring it? Y'all so good together? Yeah. And I'm like, it was hard. No, I didn't want to do it, but I felt that. And I think you said something that resonated with me. It was fair to her because I knew she wouldn't be. She probably not as happy as she could be, given what we're dealing with. Yeah. And so like out of respect for you, it was like, I feel like I need it, but I think you probably need this too. Yeah. And so like walk me through like that mental thought process, or like thinking like whether the difficulty of having the conversation, or like the things that you're bouncing off your head. Like, what is that like? Because I don't think when women hear like the guy just like, you wasted her time. That's what they say. You wasted her time. You knew you didn't want this, and you made it. You broke up with her. You wasted my. So like, walk me through how is that, and what are the things that you're considering as you're like logical person, as you're factoring like, should I do this? Should I not? Which way should I go?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I'm not positive that it was the right decision, right? Like I could go back and forth with it. Obviously it worked out, so great. But if I take myself back to that moment, I could have gone either way. And I think ultimately, like what you pointed out, me taking her into consideration and thinking about what me as a boyfriend would look like in business school, and if that was a person that she deserved to be with at the time, and then speaking to other folks who had done kind of similar things, right? Whether that was school or taking a new job somewhere else or whatever it may have been, and hearing what kind of went into their thought process and how they decided on whatever it is they ended up going with. So, you know, you meet a lot of folks when you're doing the pre-MBA process, and, you know, hearing what other
things they dealt with and navigated. You know, that first Thanksgiving break, they say called Black Thursday.
Yeah, exactly.
People come in relationships and they end.
Exactly.
Come Thanksgiving is over. It's a real thing in business
I've heard that.
school.
I've heard that. And so I was like, do I want to like go through that?
And those typically end.
Yeah,
like
it's not gonna be a good situation. So I'd heard that before, right? And I'm like, do I want to, you know, have that situation happen with this? And I think back to even when I was in college, I broke up with my high school girlfriend like that, right? Like I go to college and then we broke up like first break, you know? So it's like, all right, I've seen this play out before. So I think that was really where my thought process was going. And I mean, I knew she was a great girl. I know we got along well. So that was the other side of it. Like, do I want to just keep this going? There is obviously the risk that she meets someone else in the in-between. But ultimately felt like that was the right way to go. And so we talked it out. And she agreed with kind of where I was coming from and thought it was best as well. So.
No, I get that. And that makes sense to me. I think the last part in this particular piece of the story that I would want to like learn about is like, you kind of told us her reaction, but like, what was her, like, what were I'm sure like over time in conversations, she's like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, how did she receive it? What do you think her, you know, thought process was initially finding out this is what you were wanting to do?
Yeah.
Then how does she handle that?
Yeah. No, I think initially she was thinking that she knew I was applying to business school, and I think initially she thought that, you know, we can try to make this work, right? And, you know, she was willing to explore that, what that could look like. And, you know, I think initially I was thinking that as well, but kind of came to the decision that it wasn't going to make sense, or wouldn't be fair to her again, as I said before. And yeah, I think initially she, I wouldn't say like took it poorly, but didn't love the idea, right? Like she wasn't, you know, she was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but there was definitely a negative reaction to the idea of us breaking up.
It makes sense. I mean, it's natural.
So yeah, we had that, you know, difficult conversation and we talked it through, like I said, and it wasn't like it was a series of conversations we had to have. I think it was more like one big one, and came to that decision.
I know what you mean by tough decision, and I have to make the tough call to wrap this up for today. Mick, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing, and I'm looking forward to chatting next week as we discuss evaluating someone as a wife versus a girlfriend, navigating living with someone for the first time, going to counseling to get help for communication, and the role that intimacy plays in a relationship. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm looking forward and excited about next week. Please stay tuned. Follow me at Think Love Wife on Instagram, and make sure you subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast on all major platforms. If you get a chance, be sure to tell a friend, share the podcast, leave a written review, and until next time, I hope the conversation keeps going.